one of the more common requests I've been getting lately is controller paddles. Which do I recommend? What buttons do I use in War Thunder? And just generally, how do these paddles work? So today's video, we are taking a look at the ExtremeRate paddle kits. I'm going to be showing you my old PS4 controller paddles, as well as installing this brand new PlayStation 5 4.0 paddle kit that just arrived today. So this one here is the ExtremeRate Dawn version 1.0 kit for PlayStation 4 controllers. I've owned this going on for 2 years now, give or take. Basically, you have your stock PS4 controller with this replacement rear shell, and that actually comes with the 4 extra paddle buttons. These here are then bound to my face buttons, so typically X, square, triangle, and circle, and your D-pad. I actually have, so my bottom two I have doing square and circle, and the top ones are my D-pad left and D-pad right. So in War Thunder, this basically translates to my yaw for the bottom paddles. So the bottom ones here would typically be yaw. And then for my top ones, I use these for my flaps. So we have raised flaps on this one and lower on this one. And basically what this means is I no longer have to take my thumbs off the sticks to press these face buttons anymore. Essentially, my square and circle and my D-pad left and right are now at the back of the controller. So these here essentially are my face buttons now. And yeah, I can roll and yaw at the same time. Like I said, I can bring out my flaps near instantaneous, mid-combat, because these buttons are now right here at the back. And as I said, I don't need to take my thumbs off the sticks. I don't need to play like this. And yeah, it's just a lot more intuitive to hold in your hands. You know where these buttons are. It just makes sense. Fantastic bit of kit. If you are stuck on PlayStation 4, I would highly recommend getting yourself a set of these. Easily the best paddle setup available on the market for the PS4. Small disclaimer, obviously you will need to open up your controller, avoiding any warranty, and some basic DIY skills will be required to install the kit. So you do this and anything that actually falls in the video at your own risk, and I'm not responsible if you do break your controller. Now for the PlayStation 5 players out there, I just picked up this brand new DualSense controller, as well as the ExtremeRate paddle kit here. This is the version 4, Rise 4 Remap kit. Now I don't actually own a PS5 console yet, so I will be running this in remote play, which is actually surprisingly good from my tests. It's very lag-free. Not to mention, you can actually adjust your joysticks curves with a tool called DualShock 4 Windows. So I'll be running this here through a PC using remote play for the time being until I get a PS5 console. I may do a video on actual PlayStation remote play in the future, because it's kind of a big deal to be able to adjust your curves and that, and it may even help refine your aim further in War Thunder. But for today, let's just focus on installing this kit into this PlayStation 5 controller. So I just want to point out as well, this is actually my first time to be opening up a DualSense controller. This is a brand new controller here, just bought today. I'm about to void the warranty. I genuinely have no idea what I'm doing. I have looked up online and a bit of research on this, but other than that, I have never touched one of these before. Obviously, there are going to be better installation videos out there. I just figured it would be kind of interesting to show everyone what is involved from the perspective of someone that has never actually done this before. And again, to be absolutely clear, this is my first time opening up one of these. So this is going to be just as much as a surprise, learning curve, whatever, as to me as it is for you. So, first things first, let's have a look in here. Let's move this all to one side, because we will not be looking at the PS4 controller today. it's more or less a very similar process either way. Right, actually let's just put that there for a second. So this is all brand new. Never even opened any of this up yet. So basically we have our shell. Let's go ahead and just open this up so you can get a clearer view. So here we have our replacement shell. I bought the grippy black version because this is supposedly more grippy to hold. I don't know, we'll find out. But that's the one I bought. So this goes on the back of your controller, replaces the stock shell, the original shell. Your actual buttons fit here, which we'll get to in a second. So we've got that, and in here we have, so these here are the buttons. Let me just empty these out. Make sure we don't lose anything. So we basically have our, I'm guessing this sits on the back. So it looks like that goes on the back somehow, possibly. Something like that. And then you've got your cover that goes on there. That is the button for activating the mapping mode. Again, we'll show that at the end. And then you have your actual paddles here, which sit something like that. So obviously you're going to have two either side. Roughly, it's going to go like that. So watch to the end and we'll find out how that actually goes together. Just put all those for there to one side for now. Now you get some tools as well. So you're going to have a small Phillips screwdriver for undoing the controller screws. You have got your plastic pry tool. And then in there you also have the screws for actually putting the buttons together and the kit in general. So put those to one side. And then here we have the actual board. So you've got all sorts of ribbon cables here. And if I can get this to come out. We have our remap board, I believe. And that there is the LED cover. So again, we'll put all this to one side. Remap board with the light on it. Some very thin cable. I'm not actually sure what that is for at the moment. Get to that. And we then have our actual ribbon cables. So I believe this is the main remap ribbon cable. And then this looks like the L3 button, yes. So you can actually solder this on as well, and that will allow you to map the L3 button. I'm not going to bother with this. I just simply want the face button, so square, triangle, circle, X, and the D-pad. That's all I'm interested in. So put all that to one side. And then we have some more ribbon cables. Put this out of the way for now. So my understanding is, it's kind of hard to show this up on the camera. Unfortunately, this is only a web camera, so the quality isn't going to be that great. But basically, you're going to need a pair of scissors, And depending which controller you have, so I have the BDM020, which is the one on the end here. Got 010 in the middle, that is not my controller. And we got 010 here as well. This one here is 020, so we want to keep these two ends ones. And these two here, we're going to cut off with scissors. So I'll do that shortly. And then you've got the same for this cable here. So again, it's not going to show up on the camera, but we have 020 is the second one here, and this is 010. So we're going to want to cut this one off. So that is basically what is included in the kit. And for your tools, let's just open this up, put it all to one side so it's all ready to go. So like I said, you've got your small Phillips screwdriver. You've got your plastic prying tool. You'll need this for getting the shell off. And then you have all sorts of assorted screws. We'll figure out where they go in a second. So that is all your parts. I also recommend, if you're going to do this, you get one of these as well. Another prying tool. It's more of a flat version than, say, this. More of a rigid version. You also might want to get yourself some pliers. I like to grab the ribbon cable and just give them a little side to side just to get them out. I've also got these as well, some little tiny tweezer type things, just in case we need them. And yeah, that is it. So let's get to installing these paddles. I'm going to start by removing this little outer shell here. So I've done a little bit of research on this. I do have some general idea, let's just say. So I'm going to grab my pry tool here. I don't know how you go about using this one. We'll give it a go actually, because it does come with the kit. Well, actually it does work, yeah. So you want to get your pry tool in the end here, as best you can. A bit fiddly. Very fiddly, there you go. And that should click out like that. Same with the other side. So you want to get your tool in there. You hear that click. So you just want to kind of push the tool in at the angle until you hear that click. And I'm then just going to run my tool along the edge of the casing here to release the tabs inside. And that should, I believe now, just pop off. No, there's still something holding it. So get your tool. There we go, there's some near the speaker port. Same on the other side. And that looks like it's released. So that should now hopefully just pop right off. Like that. So you want to put that to one side. And then we basically have, so we have two screws here, which you're going to use your Phillips screwdriver. And we also have two screws under these bumper buttons here. So to get to these, you're going to want to grab your pry tool, and you actually just want to pull up. There we go. You'll hear a little click again. So you just want to pull those out. Again, same for the other side. Put those to one side for now, and you can now see we have the other two screws. So grab your screwdriver and start undoing these. I'll put these over here so I know that they're out of the controller. I believe they're the same thread and everything. But I will compare the top and the bottom ones just to make sure. It's a shame they couldn't include... Oh, I think it is magnetic. Somewhat. No, it's not. Yeah, it would have been better if there's a magnetic screwdriver they included. I mean, it's not much to ask for, is it? So they are actually the same thread from the looks of it. Okay, we are back, and that should be somewhat clearer for you guys, just so you can see a little bit more what is going on. So, we have undone the screws. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So they're undone. And at this point, you basically just want to grab your pry tool again, and we are going to run this along the side here. So you just want to run it along the edge on both sides. Again, you're listening for that little click to tell you the tabs have released. And we want to do the same on this side here. So again, stick your tool in there. And then we've actually got 2 tabs here. So you grab your tool again, pull those away. There we go. So you have to kind of pull it up as you pry it. Like that. Right. So turn this upside down, and this should then pull away. There's no cables on this one to worry about. So that has now come away. And we have access to the internals. So I'm going to put this shell to one side. I'm not sure if we need this anymore. There is actually some plastic silicone type stuff here. I'm not sure if that's like a heat pad for the battery. I don't think it is. No, it's not a heat pad. I think it's just something basically to keep it nice and tight in there. So I put that to one side. And now the controller internals, right. So I think the first thing we'll do here, unplug the battery. So to do this, There's no real way around this. You just want to gently grab the 3 wires and kind of side to side motions just to release that. Don't pull it straight up because you may rip the wires off. And there's your battery, so you put that to one side. So the first thing we need to remove is probably this here, which if I'm not mistaken is the touchpad cable right there. Doesn't that come out from the side? Hold on. Let's remove the battery cover first. The holder rather. So to one side, little tiny screw. And yeah, that is actually like integrated into the holder. So you can't simply just pull that out. Okay, so we want to remove this thing here, which I believe is something to do with the touchpad. And to do that, we're going to actually just go ahead and kind of pull that out of there. Like that. So very fiddly, that little thing. And then you kind of want to gently move that out of the way because you don't want to rip that. That's a very small ribbon cable. You could at this point just pull that right out, but I'm going to leave that plugged in and just move it out of the way. Take the battery holder out. Put that to one side. And then we have these analog, the triggers. So this one here looks a lot easier. I'm just going to grab the pliers here. And we're going to do side to side motions to get that thing out of there. It's not that, doesn't want to go. So very gently, don't pull up, side to side again. And this one here, somewhat the same, although, yeah, we're not going to be able to grip that one. So, yeah, you can't use the pliers on that, unfortunately. I think this one here, the only real thing you can do, unless you have some really small pliers, is just grab the little blue tab and the cable and side to side, just slowly inch it out there. And it should eventually go like that. So there are your triggers. Watch these 2 cables here and these 2 on these side. These are for your motors. And we then have 2 tabs holding the board in. So there's one there and one there. Before we do that, let's go ahead and just unplug this. Again, I believe this is a touchpad cable. So I'm going to grab my pliers. This is the easiest way of doing it in my opinion. Same technique I'd use with the PS4 controller. So grab your pliers, grab the blue tab, grip it, and just side to side again, very gentle. And you should just feel it go like that. Don't pull on that because it will rip. That's probably one of the easier cables to rip. And then that's undone. So the main two you want to watch for is obviously this one here, which we've done by just pulling on the silicone with the with these tweezer type things. And then you've got to watch the touchpad cable here at the back. So once you have them undone, I'm going to go ahead and just release these two tabs. And that's all undone. There is this cable here. I think I might just go ahead and undo that. I was hoping we could have left it in, but it looks like it's going to have to be removed. Probably the easiest way again is with the pliers. Again, try and get some smaller pliers. And I think that's about ready to go. Nope. Okay, that's ready to go now. Alright, so that is undone. This is a lot more fiddly than the PS4 controller, I can tell you that. So you want to move that out of the way. So we've got this one undone now. And you basically want to pull the sticks through now. There's some, so they go through the holes on the analogs. Make sure that cable we just undone there is out of the way. You don't want that to break. So make sure it doesn't catch. Same with this trigger cable. And that is now free. So, here's a good look. Now I'm actually going to replace these sticks with another kit I've bought. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now before we carry on. So I'll pop those off. And then I have 1 and 2. But the idea is, so you have your joystick, these are hot swappable. And they pop on there, and then you can pop them off anytime. Like that. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and put these on here. Okay, they are on. So next, I believe we're up to the remap. And I have no idea what I'm doing at this point. Oh, and by the way, I should probably point out as well. So the camera won't pick it up, but it will basically tell you which model of controller you have right here on the circuit. So mine says BDM020. And as I was saying at the beginning of the video, this will line up with what these say. So you want to keep the one yours is. So mine is BDM020. I'm going to keep this one on the end and this one on the end here. and the rest you're going to cut off with some scissors. So, scissors. So 0 to 10, we want to cut that off. Be careful you don't cut the other ones as well. And always double check. So that one is ready. Same with this one, only when they have one to cut off. So 0 to 10 is being cut, and 0 to 10 is gone. And then we have our remap board here, cable even. So the idea is this sits on here. And once you've got that in, you should be able to put the board back. So you can flip this back over. Just watch for this cable here again. And also, obviously, you don't want to trap this here, which needs to be on top. So I'm going to flip this over. Make sure that cable's out of the way. And you also have that touchpad cable I can see there. Okay. So far, so good. Hopefully that cable is still connected in there. Can slot that back in. So I'm going to go ahead, connect the cables again. So we have the touchpad cable. These are still very fiddly. Just make sure that is nice and secure. Side to side again as you connect in, just to push it in. And then we have, I don't actually know what this one does. I presume it's the mute button or something. Not a fan of these tiny cables. Not a fan at all. We'll just push that in, make sure it's nice and secure. We'll save this one till last because the battery holder's got to go back on. Okay, so before we go ahead and connect the battery holder, we're actually going to go ahead and remove these trigger cables right here. And so this, you're just going to gently grab on the cable where the blue tab is and wiggle that out. Should come out quite easily. Same for the other side here. You can actually grab this one by the tab. And that should eventually come out. Like that. Pull those to one side. And you want to grab your cable that came with the kit. This is the trigger cable for L1 and L2. So this is the left side of the controller. This side here. And it's actually going to go in this way here. So with the shiny side facing towards you. Make sure that goes in. And then there is actually a tab here, a little line, sorry, to indicate that you fold it. So you fold that over. And then that other side, the other connector, goes into there like that. Make sure those connections are well in. Just double check them. And then for the other side, grab your longer ribbon cable that came with the kit. And this one simply goes like this. So connect that one there. Just at the side of the triggers. Again, make sure that connection is well in, and then connect to the other side into this connector here. And you kind of want to push down on the little tabs that stick out. That's the way I just did it. And it should eventually go in. For some reason, that one is actually quite fiddly. So just double check your connections again. Make sure they are well in. And we can then start putting this back together. So we're going to need the battery holder. And we want to kind of move these cables out of the way. So I'm just going to hold those out of the way while I put this back. And the trick with this battery holder is obviously we have a lot of cables to work with now. So basically you want your black and red cables for the vibration motors to kind of rest under these arch type things here. So there's one on the left and the right. So that wants to rest under there. And at the same time, we also have this awkward cable from the beginning. And that is actually going to rest inside the battery holder. So you kind of just want to lift that up until it seats in there. Check your red and black wires again. Again, double check all your connections. This is the last chance you'll have before you put it back together. Slot the battery holder in there, making sure all your cables are safe and out of the way. And at this point, we should be safe to screw this down again. So grab your Phillips screwdriver once again and start screwing that down. Just so it's kind of hand tight, just so it stops turning. And then grab your battery. It goes this way around. Might actually be easier to connect that first. So that just goes in, clips in right there into that connector. And then, again, make sure your wires are out of the way. There's a lot of wires to worry about now. So, should go something like that. I'm just going to grab my screwdriver and move the battery wiring out of the way. And that actually clips under that little, there's a black clip there, it may not pick up on the camera, but there's a little battery clip thing here for the wiring. And the other thing is this cable here. So as I was saying, this slots into the battery holder housing. And hopefully that will stay in just like that. So that's how it should look at this point. And then I see no reason why we can't remove this now and just stick it down. So remove your little sticky tape thingamajig. And I'm just going to line this up with the edge of the battery roughly. Just like that. So that's stuck down. And then we want to go ahead and connect our cables. So this one here actually folds over. Again, there's a line just to indicate that. I think the idea is you're supposed to do this before you put it on. So something like that. And then you should be able to slide those cables into those little tiny connectors. And then just clamp those down once they're in. That seems to be okay. This one here, I think will run underneath. And again, it should just line up in there. That is open, isn't it? Yep. Push those in with your thumb or your finger. Clamp it down. Okay, so I did just double check this to make sure it's not another way you do this, but it is actually right. So you may have this slight discrepancy in the cable. I guess this is just how it is with the varied kits for the JDM 20 and the JDM 10 or BDM 10, sorry. So yeah, that's just because of the kit here. So obviously we've cut 10 off, which would be here. That would have been perfect otherwise, but because ours is down here, we have this uneven bit here. But yeah, that's perfectly fine, so don't need to worry about that. And next thing is the rear shell. So grab your new rear shell, and we're actually going to screw this on. So this here is the holder for the paddles. I've already gone ahead and put the cover in. So this here is the LED light cover that slots in there. And basically what we want to do is line this up with the hole. I've got the wrong section, sorry. Yeah, so line this up. There's actually some holes here, which is where it goes. So you want to line those holes up. Something like that. You should hear it click in. And then you want to turn it over. And we actually have 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. So these are the larger screws in the kit. So you have really small ones. So the black small ones, which actually hold the board in place, which we'll get to shortly. Then you have these larger black screws, which hold this in place. And there is also some silver screws, which I believe are spares for your controller shell. So you want to screw these in from the inside. And again, this is only plastic, so you don't want to be over tightening this, just enough so it stops turning. Pretty much. So that's the fourth one. So next, we want to grab our main paddle buttons. This is K1. There's also a rod here, and that's going to slide in there. There's actually a small hole. So that goes in like that. And then you line this up to K1. And there's actually two clips right there, 1 and 2, which is where the rod clips into. So line that up, give it a bit of a push, and it should click in like that. And that's one paddle in. So next grab your K2 along with the other rod. And again, that just slides in the hole. Line that up with the clips again. And give it a push, and that clips in like that. And next, so we want to grab the controller again. Thread your cable through. So this cable here goes through this hole here in the rear of the shell. So something like that. We then want the remap board with the red light on it. And this actually connects kind of upside down if you like. So again, that's just going to go in there. Again, push that in with your finger and clip that down. And that should now be held in place. And then I'm guessing you need to pull this in. So it actually clips in these, there's some like little feet for it. And it clips in like that. And then your paddles actually operate by clicking those. So we then have two screw holes. So again, as I was saying, you've got your smaller screws, which go in here. And they should hold the remap board down. They're actually quite long for what they are. Try and get these screws flush with the board. Just don't over tighten it. So that's just about stopped turning. Second screw. Nothing worse than a screw falling at the back. This is why you need magnetic screwdrivers. Alright, that's stopped turning. So you should be able to hear your paddles working now. The buttons for these two are actually on the other side. And this is connected. And while we're here, we may as well do all this as well. So I'll just move this out of the way for a second. And the idea is this one. So your buttons actually clip into these holes. It's quite fiddly. So nothing actually holds these in place. They kind of just rest there on these holes, which is what makes this so damn fiddly. And then you have your button for activating the Remap mode. And the idea then is that actually clips into the back of this here. So the easiest way I figure of doing this is probably something like this. And then that clips in like that. At this point, we should be able to do a little test. Just be careful if you are going to open your controller up now, because obviously we have a lot more wiring to worry about. So you can't just pull your rear shell away now. And that's on. And we should be able to press this button here. So you hold that down. And as you can see there, it's just lit up. So that indicates the paddles have power and they are working. And to turn that off again, to turn it off remap mode, you just hold that down again. So that is all working. And at this point, you might just want to take a second just to check all your connections. Make sure this thing here hasn't come out again. Just double check everything, make sure no wires are trapped. Mine appears to be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and clip this together now. And to do this, you basically want to close it by pushing towards the L1 and R1, like so. So start with that, start with the top. Work your way down, clip it all in place. This one here has gone in crooked. And that should click in place like that. So I'll just go ahead and close it all up. Again, it will click. And then basically all that's left to do is grab your 4 screws, or you can use the new ones that came with the kit. I'm going to go ahead and use the old ones. And all you want to do is put these screws back where you got them from originally, pretty much. So we'll screw those back in. Again, I'm only going to tighten these just enough. It's only plastic, so as soon as I start getting some force, as soon as they stop turning, I'm going to stop. And probably the worst thing you could do here is actually cross thread this, so just make sure the screw is going in straight. Give it a few turns back and forth just to make sure. And if it seems like it's not going in, you probably are cross threading it, so just double check. And then for your final 3 and 4 screws, remember these are actually in the bumper buttons L1 and L2. This is actually going to be quite fiddly because we don't have a magnetic screwdriver. Yeah, you might want to get yourself a little magnetic screwdriver for this. The worst thing now will be actually having the screws drop inside the controller and having to take it all apart again. I'm not really sure how you're supposed to do this without a magnetic screwdriver, but we will see. Okay, I've managed to do it, I think. Yeah, I've managed to get that one in. Okay, that's just about stopped turning, so I'm going to stop tightening it up. Same for the other side, just kind of guide it in with your other hand, finger, whatever. And that is just about tightened up. So you can then grab your L1 and R1. So there's just R1 here. And basically this just slides in this hole here pretty much. Not much to it. So I'll just line that up. Hold on a second. There we go. So that just clicks back in. Same for the L1. Just line it up with the hole and push it in. And that's all back together. Your joysticks are on. All that's left to do is put your fascia cover back on. And I believe this just kind of slides in. Yeah, I'm not entirely happy with how that's going in. Just make sure these points bits here just kind of slide in straight. Still not really liking that. Okay, there we go. So you want to get those in first, and then just slowly work your way down, clip it all in. Just make sure that's all clicked in all the way. I'm going to go ahead and put my hot swappable sticks on. These actually aren't as good as the ones I had on the PS4. This one here is actually a lot taller than I would have preferred. I would have liked this one to be taller and this one much shorter. So I may end up changing these, but for now we'll just see how we get on. So yeah, we have paddles on a PS5 controller, the Rise 4 Remap paddles. So we'll see how we get on with these. Okay guys, so quickly just configuring the paddles. We're going to go ahead here and press and hold this button down to put this in mapping mode. And I'm going to basically configure mine for my yaw on the bottom ones. And then I then want my flap controls, so lower and raising the flaps on these two inside ones. And that light there indicates that it's in mapping mode, so the red light. And we're going to start by mapping this one here, so I'm going to go ahead and hold the bottom left paddle while holding square. So that will rapidly flash just to indicate that's actually being mapped. And then same again for the right one here. So I'm going to hold that down, hold circle. And again, that's going to flash. Just double check they're bound. And then for the top ones, we want lower flaps on the right one here. So I'm going to hold this one down and then press my D-pad right. And for the inside left one, we want raised flaps. And those should be then bound, so I'm going to go ahead and take this out of mapping mode. So the light has gone out there. And then we should, so I'm not going to press the face buttons, we should then have your right and your left. So that is working. And with the flaps, we should have lower flaps on this right one. Yep, they're working fine, and the left one should be raised flaps. So that is working as well. And I'll just show you how I have this configured. So basically you want, obviously I do have my video up here for the controls. I am getting to doing a new one, by the way. Just going to take time. The thing is, I just don't have the same passion for this game anymore over the years. I feel like it's just slowly dwindled to whatever the hell War Thunder is these days. Not the same as it once was. But yeah, I am getting to that. You know, I'm not done with War Thunder by any means. So yeah, you just want your max and your min values here. set to your face buttons, which are then linked to these paddles at the back. So your max is your right, and your min is going to be your left. All this here is irrelevant because we are not actually using an axis. And then for the flaps, you'll find these right here. So again, you just want your flaps down on the right D-pad and your flaps up on the left D-pad. And then I'll just go over my tanks, ground vehicles really quick. For tanks, I basically just use these two outside paddles. So I have binoculars on square, if I can find it. Guessing it would be in the miscellaneous. Binoculars are under camera control. So as you can see there, I've got it on square, and that is then my inside left paddle. And then the other one, so I use my zoom camera on the inside right, on the outside right paddle, sorry. So that will actually zoom my camera in. Now let's go for a quick spin just to show you how these work. Let's put some sound on. It's definitely going to take some getting used to these paddles because I'm used to having the PS4 paddles, which have no, so the extra two paddles are just flat, they're not raised, whereas these are actually raised up. So it's going to be a bit awkward getting used to that. So basically, what you can do with these is you can roll, obviously with your right stick. And now without these paddles, the only way to actually do the yaw would be to kind of move your thumb over here to square and circle, or you would have to play something like this, which is almost impossible to be honest. So that is that's what you call claw. A lot of people do play like that, but it's not good for your joints, and yeah, it's wrong. What can I say? Whereas with these paddles, so we can obviously roll again with the stick, and then we can use the yaw right and the yaw left. And then for the flaps, so let's say you was in a stall fight here, you want to engage your flaps, just tap the paddles at the back. And then you could do something like a hammerhead by initiating the yaw, bring your flaps back to raised, and you'll be able to drop on them. And that's really all the paddles are. There doesn't seem to be much to them. But believe me, having to not take your thumbs off the stick to access these buttons is quite a big thing. It's actually a game changer, especially for War Thunder, where we're already short of buttons to begin with. And obviously, you're not gaining any buttons, but just the fact that you can have your thumbs and your fingers on more axes. So obviously, you got the aim in here, the throttle, the roll, and then you're accessing your yaw with these back buttons, as well as the flaps here with these top two. And then you've also got your bumpers here for your pitch and whatnot. You can zoom on the R1. So yeah, it's kind of a big deal, and it is a massive game changer. You've not actually used paddles before, you just have to get yourself some of these. Honestly, one of the best, highly recommended things I can recommend to anybody that wants to get more serious about playing on a controller. So yeah, it's kind of it for the paddles. I hope that explains a lot of questions I've had, and I will see you guys in the next video. Just some closing thoughts before I end the video. So now I've had some time to actually play around with these. So my only issue with these is, yes, they are paddles. You get 4 buttons on the PS5 controller, which, by the way, is a lot better. The sticks are more responsive on the PS5. The triggers are better. The only thing I'm not a huge fan of is the new touchpad. So, for instance, typically I would have this assigned to the camera tracking, so I can look where another plane is that I'm locked onto. And I would be able to, on the PS4 controller, actually just click this while I had my back finger resting on the trigger here. But I'm not actually able to do that because the only way to really activate this is if you press it up here. Whereas if we just briefly go back to the PS4 controller, you can kind of see this is more curved around the back, and you can just tap that right there. So you can have your finger there on the R1 bumper button, and you can also press that as well. Whereas on the PS4 controller, you can't really do that. There's no way I can really press that as well as have the trigger on there. I have to actually let go of the trigger to do it. So that's the only downside with the actual PS5 controller. Other than that, it's all great. Now, the issue with these paddles is, like I said earlier, I'm used to these being flush with the controller, more or less flush. And these ones are risen up. And this rise in the back of the controller, it just makes you grip the controller a bit awkward. It feels awkward to hold, actually, like very awkward. Now, it may just be a case that I need to play this more and get used to it, but I am not a huge fan of that. Obviously, I mean, in my opinion, this is a much better design because these buttons are more or less flush with the controller shell at the back. There's no rise in your hands, so you're just holding the controller naturally as you would do. And it doesn't really feel any different. And these paddles, you know, you can have both fingers on the back there, you can have two on the triggers, and you got your thumbs on the sticks. So that, in my opinion, is a much better design. And I would actually recommend the PS4 controller over the PS5 controller just for this reason with the paddles. You know, the PS5 paddles are not quite there yet. I am aware Sony have just, as I've done this video, they've just actually released the Pro controller. We have no pricing at the moment. It does only have two paddles. On the PS5 one, they're bringing out the Pro controller. But honestly, I would probably say that it's going to be better than this, just simply because of this rise in this this button hold here with the extra two paddles. But yeah, you do get paddles. You know, paddles are a huge deal. They will help you either way. Whether I will stick with this, I'm not sure. Simply because of the reason I'm so used to this one here. I may end up playing, even when I do get a PS5 console, I may end up playing this through remote play and actually using the PS4 controller. Because I just simply prefer this layout. Ergonomically and from a design perspective, it's just better. Whereas this, in my opinion, is a downgrade, if you like. But yeah, it's still paddles, you know. This is all you have on PS5 currently until they make some developments with it, I guess. Hopefully ExtremeRate will review this at some point and perhaps make a new one. But until then, this is really the only choice you have unless you go down the Pro controller route, which, as we know, is pricey, and the build quality from Scuff and the likes is questionable at best. So yeah, I'll kind of leave it up to you guys what you want to do. I mean, this is okay. There's nothing bad about it per se. It's just a bit awkward to get used to. I will do a review video at some point after I've had time to play with this more. But at the moment, I'm not a huge fan, I must say. But I will, like I say, do an update on that. So I'll leave you guys there with it, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.